Welcome to the Sound Mind Strategy Podcast with your host, Evan.
And Anina Blankenship.
This podcast is aimed to be an in-depth discussion between husband and wife power couple where we take on challenging topics in the mental health and wellness arena.
By trade and training, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified professional coactive coach, USA Cycling National Champion, and I love to push my limits, both physically and mentally.
As for me, I am currently in a master's program for sport and performance psychology, where I'm also on track to become a certified mental performance consultant. I've also been coaching athletes for the last 5 years, helping them reach their truest potential.
We're both very passionate about athletic performance, mental skills training, spirituality, and we love to take a holistic approach to helping people find harmony in their mind, body, and spirit.
We believe that there's greatness inside of everyone. Our mission and the mission of this podcast is to help you unlock and operate within yours. Hello, everybody. Welcome back or welcome to the Sound Mind Strategies podcast. This is episode number 18, and I'm sitting alongside my wonderful wife. She is 18 weeks pregnant. And yeah. So how are you doing this weekend?
Doing fairly well, considering I'm
fairly
18.
Well.
I keep saying 18 months. I'm like, no, it's 18 weeks, Anina. 18 months, that would be horrible right now. 18 weeks. Yeah, it's been a nice weekend going to a lot of the races that were happening this weekend, the bike races.
Yeah, Gateway Cup in St. Louis. Wonderful races, 4 days of racing, Friday through Monday. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah,
it was neat to go out and watch, and a little tired from that, just being out in the sun and carrying around our little Cooper, our dog. But it was nice to see people and socialize and just get out of the house for a little bit. So
yeah, it was fun getting out. I did jump into 2 out of the 4 days. I didn't really feel like mixing it up on Friday. It was a monsoon rainstorm whenever my race was going to be going on. So I decided to sit that one out, and we actually sat back and watched a really old but pretty good movie. What did we watch? Do you remember?
You've Got Mail.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you guys remember that? That was a good movie.
That was good. It's like a classic.
I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was clean. It was nice.
It was cracking us up though about AOL, right? It's just like in the dial up you hear like like
that was real.
Gosh. Yeah, like wow, flashbacks.
Yeah, so did that Friday, and then jumped in Saturday, Sunday, and then decided we had a lot of things going on today. Today's Monday. We're recording on Monday. So we went and looked at a home today. Again, not another one that's not for us, but we decided to narrow the search. Like we really honed in on a neighborhood, a couple neighborhoods, really very close vicinity, couple neighborhoods. Actually, some thanks from a good friend of ours, Lauren. She kind of said that when her and her husband Justin were looking for a home, that's what really helped them when they just kind of like really narrowed in on a
neighborhood
exactly where they wanted, and just be ready to pounce as soon as one pops up that you like. And so we're like, okay, we know what we want, we know where we want, and so that's kind of what we're doing. We're just waiting. Yeah,
just fine tuning it a little bit more each time with more information we get, and the more observant we are of the area that we're in, and just figuring out where we want to go. So
yeah. So we're just waiting, being patient, kind of waiting on God to move, and
that's right.
He's got His hand in it, and we're just gonna go from there.
Yeah, and had a great dinner with some friends last night. And that was so nice
that was a lot of fun
to see them.
They were some old coworkers of yours.
Yes.
They are both since moved on and doing different things. One has a baby, and they've moved to Kansas City, and the other, she has left work and started her own
OT business. Yeah. So
and she is moving and shaking. I mean, they're both a lot of fun, and it's really neat to get to meet some of your friends and old coworkers. But man, they are just a blast. Like the little Mia, she was a riot just to hang out with.
Oh my gosh, she was.
Yeah, I think we for sure are going to have Brittany on whenever we start rolling that part in, whenever we start having guests on that girl, I tell you what, she's got more energy
I know she's on fire.
Yeah,
for her business
if we could bottle that and sell that, oh my goodness!
Right.
But it's like it's like that good energy that you want, like
genuine.
I mean, she is laser focused on exactly what she wants. She works hard and she doesn't make excuses, and she's always excited about life.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. We got to just sit down and have some real meaningful conversation over dinner, pizza. We had some pizza, and
it was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
So nice.
Yeah, I think that kind of brings everybody up. I guess what's some baby updates? You got baby updates for us?
A couple baby updates. So baby's ears are in place now. So praying that they're nice and
oh yeah, he's gonna have beautiful
ears, right? That's such a feature we all look at, right? Like, look at them ears.
Well, if they're messed up. No, I'm just kidding.
A little crooked. No.
Yeah.
And
a little
then
high-low.
yeah. And then also like this is, I know in like a week, 2 weeks, I'll get to do the like the actual.
Is that the
sonogram.
3D one?
The 3D.
Yeah, that's
the 3D.
That's the big one.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have some family want to come down and go in there with you. So that's cool. That'll be fun.
That'll be fun. So all the baby stuff is starting to they're starting to really start to appear. So we'll know the gender. So that's exciting.
I guess over the last week we got a couple shipments of baby things in, didn't we?
Did. That was so exciting.
Yeah.
Thought I was gonna cry when I saw those little onesies. I was like, what? Those babies, they're just so tiny at first. I don't know why it didn't hit me, but
yeah.
And so I saw the onesie and I was like, wow, this is gonna be a little nugget. Like I would say like 5 to 8 pounds was the weight for the onesie, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
so
we were looking at that. We're like, oh my gosh, that's so tiny.
It is so tiny.
So tiny. But then at the same time, I was kind of thinking, I was like, wait a minute, if I change my mind and think like, that's actually really big if I think about in context of like, well, that's inside, that's in your belly. It's like, now it's huge, right? Like, how in the world?
How's that fitting in there?
Yeah, the kind of like, depending on what kind of perspective you have over on looking at this little onesie, it's like pretty crazy.
It is. It is pretty crazy.
But speaking of perspective, I think that's going to be the subject matter of the day, the topic of the day. Kind of didn't really mean to roll that in there, but it kind of just worked out.
So well.
Yeah, we'll just roll with it. Yeah.
And so I know you looked up.
Yeah, I kind of want to share. I just did a quick Google search, like the definition of perspective. So it's the art of drawing solid objects to two-dimensional surface so as to give to the right impression of their height, width, depth, and position in relation to each other when viewed from a particular point of view, or a particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something, point of view. So perspective. The second one there is kind of a little bit more what we're talking about. Like, what's our point of view? Like our perspective. Like, how do we view something in our mind's eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard it too. It's like it's a powerful filter that allows us to see just life and things a certain way, basically.
Oh,
so it's like a
filter. That's honestly, I think I relate to that definition a little bit more. Filter, because kind of like blinds everything out. Everything else is kind of just like shadowed out, and I'm only just seeing this one way to do something, one way to go forward.
Yes, exactly. And even like makes me think of like what that first definition was of perspectives of just looking. It makes me think of looking at art. You can look at art so many different ways. Like you could look at it, from the left, from the right, upside down, whatever, right side up. And you can see it in so many different ways too, depending on the angle you're looking at it from.
Yeah. Remember those old, man, I don't remember, maybe it was high schoolish or whatever, but there were these kind of like weird 3D looking things. And you really kind of had to like squint or not focus on it. And then the actual subject matter would appear, right? At first it just looked really obscure and like nothing. So you really kind of had to change your perspective on how to view this picture, piece of art, whatever, to actually see what they were trying to depict. So I think there's more than one way to look at it. Like, I had a really good conversation. I was just kind of messaging a good friend of ours. She raced in mountain bike world championships and did phenomenal, which you're competing at literally the highest level in the entire world.
Right.
So it's amazing what she's doing. And I asked her I was just kind of bouncing some questions off of her and just telling her kind of like, I was just starting to get going with mountain biking and having some fun with it, but kind of here's my hiccups and here's my what I'm having some trouble with. And she's like, well, you're probably like me when I was getting started, like very overanalyzing things, very analytical about descending roots and rocks and things. I was like, yeah, exactly. And she goes, well, tell you what really helped me. This really stuck out for her is whenever someone would just say, okay, see this feature up ahead. Whenever you hit this rock on the left, whenever you get up to it or whatever, wherever it was, no more front brakes and just roll over everything. And like, maybe in her mind, but for me, I know if someone were to tell me that, I'm like, well, no, that's not going to happen. That's not the safest, smartest, best way to go about it. But I think in this terms of perspective is to take on the ideas of someone else, or not their ideas, but like the experience of someone else, right? Like, I trust you. I know you don't want to get me hurt. And I know you want me to get better and faster and smoother and have a better experience at this. So why can't I lean on your perspective and lean into the way you do it and forgo my method because it's failing me. It's not working.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing. It's just kind of like one of the things is like to look towards others' perspective, just to keep an open mind about perspective, because I had one way of seeing this.
Exactly.
Right. I was very laser focused, very inexperienced, but very focused on how to do it. And I was wrong. I just was unable to see a correct way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So sometimes having to try theirs on.
Yeah.
In a way, so to speak. Yeah, and I think it just kind of shows us too that, we all have habitual ways of thinking about situations in general. We all come with different predetermined ideas, stereotypes about different people, places, things, and sometimes working on our perspective can be really life-changing for people, and noticing that I don't have to stay stuck in this doom and gloom negative perspective, for instance. There's other ways of looking at the situation as it relates to my job, my relationship, whatever you're doing in your life. And so I know even for me, for myself, for what I have thought is possible, or, what I believe is possible for myself has sometimes limited me because of my belief. It's limited me and what I have been able to pursue in my life, pushing myself in different areas because of what my thoughts were around it. And changing your perspective on something is really, really hard because you've built up a case to why that perspective is true and why you're not going to change it, And so the mind and the body react and get really comfortable looking at it this way. And when you try to change it, your thoughts, your perspective on it, you get a little backlash from your mind and, like I said, in your body. Your body's kind of used to handling it a certain way. And it really has to figure out what this new way of embodying something is, how it's going to look and how it's going to feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You said kind of like changes things in the body. I think I would like to explore that a little bit more, because we talk about and think of perspective and perspective work, and even if I'm open to changing or open to listening to others and having a new perspective, which we kind of even haven't got that far yet, so I don't want to get too far ahead. I kind of want to focus on maybe some old perspective and how we get stuck in that. But I really kind of think it would be worth diving into a little bit of this physiology stuff, like the body stuff. You're like, so how is me having a certain perspective affecting my body?
Yeah. So just take, for example, I've worked with a couple people in my coaching relationship of, they've just had extreme road rage. They get really upset when they're driving, and they just can't handle a driver like acting erratic, acting like, stupid, like as they may coin it. And so what happens in their body
of
is
course the other driver is the stupid
right,
one,
exactly, right.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah, very, very possible. But what they notice when we talk about their bodies, they notice that their grip is really, really tight on the steering wheel.
Right.
Their shoulders start to really like really crunch up to their ears. Their neck gets really tight. And what they notice is that by the end of the drive, like they are so stinking tight and their body is so wound up that, from all the frustration of driving, that, it really, for some folks, it's caused a lot of, it's really, I guess, exacerbated some of their chronic pain.
Okay.
If they've already had some
that makes
of
a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so sometimes like what I'll do with these clients is just to think about, every time you see a brake light go on, remind yourself to take a really deep breath and always be conscious of how are my hands right now? How are my shoulders? And just kind of just doing these like little body checks or body scans throughout your drive. If you notice, because a lot of times we start to notice that tension before we may react in like a really hasty manner. And so it can help you just be like, oh yeah.
So you're almost in a sense like that way, preventing an old perspective of coming on. So it's like, before I get there, here's the perspective and the attitude and the mindset I want to have. Mm-hmm. And these are the ways to recognize when the old one's creeping on, because I can feel it in my body before I even have time to notice my mind has gone that way. Exactly.
Like when this one gentleman gets on 6440, the highway, it's like he automatically kind of goes into that, shoulders really squinched up, steering wheel, like death grip on the steering wheel, before anything's even happened. Like he's already preparing his body for all the what ifs. And so we have done like a lot of like noticing that, taking deep breaths through it, breathing through it. And it seems like it's really been helping him. Which I know when he first thought, he was like, really breathing through it? And he's like, okay, never mind. It really has been
works.
helping.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. I kind of made me think of something else. In that whole sense, like, so when I'm nervous, what do I notice happens? My heart rate increases. I get, sometimes you can start to perspire a little bit. Breathing rate goes up.
Blurred vision sometimes.
Yeah, blurred vision. You kind of feel the tension in your body kind of rise. You feel that. What happens when you're really excited? Breathing rate goes up, heart rate goes up. Sometimes you start to sweat a little bit. Like, you feel that tension build in your body. Like, so physiologically, they're the same. Like body response is the same. So what changes? Like it's the mind to say that this is a good, positive, happy, excited experience, or this is a nervous, anxious, be ready to run. Because either way, like, your body's ready to do something.
Yes.
It's a whole, on the sliding scale, we're coming out of parasympathetic and more into sympathetic. So like either we're like really excited for something good to happen, or we need to be alert to avoid danger.
Yes.
So like our perspective is what changes that. So he could, in that scenario, he could be really excited because he's heading somewhere really fun, or heading to see someone he's really excited to see and have breakfast with somebody, or whatever. If he's going to work and he's really excited about the stuff he's working on, or there's imminent danger on the highway to get there, right? Like every car is a missile, aiming at him.
Right, exactly. So. Yeah, and that's and kind of where he's gotten to, and where he's finding that balance, because he has good days and bad days.
Right.
I think that's for all of us. It's like you're not always going to get, perfection. It's just that progress that you're making. And he's noticing that he's not like having as much issues with his pain now, because he's not so tense for his hour-long drive to get to where he needs to go. So, and for him, it was just kind of got scary because sometimes he had family in the car, his children and his wife, and it was just really like scary for them. And he's like, I don't want them seeing that I'm behaving in like this obnoxious, crazy way on the road. It's not healthy for them. So, so he's been, but so it's been neat to see like that he's so committed to working on changing that
So
perspective.
that's a little bit more of like an exaggerated case, like when there is like there's chronic pain involved, so he has a bigger reason to maybe be willing to change perspective. Like if he's working with you in other ways to say like, okay, these are some things I'm experiencing I would like to change, and you've since found maybe some of the root causes of and being able to do some perspective work and change some things for him. But what about the person who is just gone through life, worked really hard, just kind of always done things the same way, right? Maybe never taken advice from people that have gone before them, but just they're the people that just figured it out on their own. Grit, determination, hardworking. No one's going to outwork them. Have found some level of success in their life. They're happy where they are. But from an outsider looking at them, you say, man, you sure waste a lot of time. You sure waste a lot of energy. You sure, like, there's some refinement that can happen in your life. How do you get through to someone like that who's just like, I don't really have a necessity to change. I don't really have there's nothing, I'm not in pain. I'm not, like my business isn't suffering. Like, how do you get through to them to maybe open their eyes to see a different way?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think first off, it has to be something, in my experience, something that they want to work on. So by me just coming to them and saying like, man, I'm seeing that things are kind of looking this way for you, it's not necessarily going to be what I think is going to hook them in and help them change. From my experience, they have to come to a spot in their life where they're just like, dang, life is okay. It could be better. Maybe I'm not exactly satisfied with my work or the way I've been doing things. And so I think there has to become maybe a little bit of awareness from them to even get started in that direction. Because I think, we can, feed information to people and you should do this or should do that or what's going on in this area. But until they really grab hold of it and want that change, it almost feels like we're just kind of talking to a wall for me.
Yeah. Okay. So, we all have those clients that come in and maybe not, but you and I know both have it.
Yes.
Have those clients that come to you and, obviously they come to you and pay for your services for some reason, right? So you would imagine their change is wanted. So you work with some of that, you get some of their goals and their ideas down, and but they just kind of seem at a loss, like
they're just kind of stuck maybe in an area. Yeah, and so
there's not that Michael Gervais puts it really well. He kind of says no real lasting change is started without some level of pain. There has to be some level of pain there to spur on true lasting change.
True lasting change. Yeah. Yeah. And something that I do a lot with the people I work with is on perspective work is we'll get a piece of paper out and let's say I'm on the phone with them or even in person. And let's say their topic is, work. So I put their topic in the middle of the piece of paper and then we talk about, okay, what's your current perspective as it relates to work?
Yeah.
So we'll just talk about that a little bit. What's the feel here? What's the energy like here? What do you notice your body doing when you think about it? And typically, it's typically if they're wanting to work on that area of their life, it's kind of just hodum, just doesn't feel good. I'm not excited about it. Yeah. And so then I'll say,
pays the bills.
It pays the bills. Exactly. So then I'll say, okay, well, let's physically step across that piece of paper. So we go to the other side and we look at, okay, so what's possible on this side?
So you actually make them move their body.
I do, because there's so much, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the physical things of our body, there's so much physical change that can kind of happen when you almost physically remove somebody from that stuck place and say, now let's come on over here and look at what this looks like, because it helps them get out of that frame of mind of how that body thinks, how your mind and body are thinking there. And so maybe we'll jump across and I'll say, okay, so tell me what is the opposite of how you're feeling? What is another perspective that you would like to feel that maybe, or what would the opposite perspective of this be? And then maybe oh gosh, it'd be great. It'd be glorious. Da, da, da. So we'll talk about that a little bit and then maybe move on to maybe figuring out maybe 6 other perspectives. It kind of just depends, but I'll ask questions how would a 5-year-old see this, or
Okay,
what's
so
the
you
good
kind
news
of-
perspective?
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to get into. So you do name these other perspectives. So you have like a 5-year-old perspective, or what are some of the other ones?
So some of them are like, what's the good news perspective?
Okay.
Or what's the sunny day perspective? Or if I know that they are like an athlete, or that they like adventure, it may be something like, what if we looked at this perspective or this topic that we're talking about, work is the topic, like we said here. If we looked at it like it's an adventure.
Yeah.
And so kind of describe it. And then before we move on, I'll be like, okay, so what do you want to call this perspective right now? And they'll name it, like whatever. Or like I found like, so it's like I think what I really like about this too is that you can have fun with it. So like sometimes I'll just be like, what is your favorite dessert? What do you like about that? Well, I like, this chocolate cake is just really creamy and it just like is so satisfying. And it's so crazy to think about how somebody can take that perspective and what they're talking about and apply it to a work situation. Like I've had somebody who wanted to stay in that perspective, the chocolate cake perspective. And it was like, he looked at work like in a way more like it was almost like a decadent way. Like it was
cool.
exciting and it like flowed and it was like creamy. And it was so crazy to think about like, look at it like that way. And when he was in that, and so then we go around and I say, now, which one do you want to be in? And they get to decide which perspective they want to stand in. And we really like narrow in that area as far as like, what's the impact you can have here or what's possible here. What do you notice your body doing here when you're in this perspective? And then
so you really make them take time to like, okay, pause, analyze.
Exactly. Like we're really going to try this perspective on. You're really going to feel it. And then I also do this thing too of like, what are you going to have to say yes to and what are you going to have to say no to in this perspective?
Wow. That's cool. I mean, because, yeah, even if you bring on the chocolate cake perspective of work, you still might need to say no to some things. It's not all great because, like, what happens in chocolate cake if we stay in chocolate cake too long, right?
Exactly.
Like, as much as we want chocolate cake all the time.
Yeah, it could get a little out of hand, right? So, yeah, exactly. So kind of having them do that. And then another powerful tool I feel like is figuring out like what they can maybe take with them as a reminder. So I know this one person, it was like a coffee mug he was going to take with him to remind him. Like I think it had like a piece of chocolate cake or something like that on it, reference it somehow. So it was a reminder for him to take that to work, and he had it on his desk. So he was able to like
bring that perspective into his workplace.
Exactly. Like quite literally. Or some people want to write, so they'll have like a little index card that they'll put in their bathroom mirror and their sun visor, just have it different places to remind themselves of, oh yeah, I'm in the whatever, chocolate cake perspective or the oak tree perspective. So it's just,
that's cool.
It's really neat. Yeah, it's so neat because it's like the mind is so powerful and you can really
I think just simple things like that, just like really looking at a piece of paper from another side. It's like, well, no, it's the physical activity of getting moving.
Yes.
Movement creates new perspective. Like it breaks old cycles, like quite literally just simple movement, like, sitting up, doing different things, just like, because when we just stay kind of held fast to where we're at and exactly what we're doing physically, like the mind kind of is the same way. It will just stay put.
Yes.
So I think, I listen to a lot of people, and a lot of times, or writers, songwriters, people, poets, or, if they're podcasts, if they're writing books or whatever, people that do a lot of writing, they said a lot of their most creative time is during movement, running, writing, whatever, some form, whatever they do to get out. Like that's when they are in their most creative state.
Getting that flow.
Yeah. So I think there's something to that.
Yeah, I really think there is. There really is.
And one, I think too, they're searching for creativity. They're open to creativity. They're opening. They are very aware that they need to be active, and they also are moving towards a goal of being creative and creating something. Now, in the other case, like when we're talking about people that are kind of stuck, there's the stuck and I know it, and stuck and I don't know it.
Right.
And I think that's being able to see that and work with that, like from a coaching side, like it's kind of like it's easier for us to be able to see that others are stuck, but it's so difficult to bring awareness to being stuck ourselves.
It is. It totally is. And like we know change is hard, right? So it's like I have worked with some folks who they really want the change, but just the work that it takes to put into it is just
I realize I'm stuck, but
yeah.
but now scared.
But now scared,
or
right?
whatever, frozen, something, put in the right word, but whatever it is, unwilling to overcome the obstacle of change.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's hard when you talk to some people like that. And it's just like it's just, their mind is so conditioned to think this way. And it's just to put the work in is by no means easy, I mean, we can all probably think about things in our lives where it's like, I was brought up this way. This is the way my family taught me to do things. Or,
oh, right.
My friends taught me to do, like, I've always just done it this way. And so or I've always looked at it this way and thought that this is just what you do. Work sucks. That's just part of it. Work is supposed to suck. You just need to make money and drive on. And it's like, well, dang, what if I could look at it like the chocolate cake perspective? Like, it would be more exciting to go.
And, I think I do want to touch on this. Like, Brittany said this at dinner last night when we were kind of you asked this question, I think, about like, what made you decide to leave?
Oh, her job.
Mm-hmm.
And go out on her own business.
So she was working as an OT, left to kind of start her own thing. So Anina said, what made you finally decide to leave? And she said, what'd she say? Oh, she always wanted to leave. She always wanted to go into practice for herself. And she had an idea that she had to wait a certain amount of time to gain a certain amount of experience to...
It was always a wait 10 to 15 year plan. Is what everyone always told her.
Get that time in and then and then she said, as time ticked on, she's like, why do I need to wait?
Yeah, like...
What am I waiting for? What am I like... So she just jumped. And so the pain of... So I think there's pain there, right? There's the pain of waiting because she was birthing something inside of her. Like, to create that business, like, I mean, if you look up on, like, I know people, that's a silly perspective. When you look up entrepreneur in the dictionary, but like literally, she is the entrepreneur spirit. Like, I've never met anyone with more drive and ambition, I don't think, than her. Like, this girl
amazing.
Got it. And so I think, so we kind of spitballed some questions and asked about failure. And, I said, man, I wish I had some of that. Like, I kind of feel like I know what I need to do. It's just that hesitation and going slow. And I mean, she is 100% all in, and it's so inspiring. And so it's just like we talked about failure, and we just like realized that it's not failure. We know that. We've talked about that here. They're all lessons. And then also how we view ourselves. I think she has really captured the right way to do it on how we view ourselves. Like, she is full of knowledge. We are full of knowledge. And it's just like people who reach out really want to work with you. You know what I mean? So I think like there are people out there that we've come in contact with that are just hesitant to get going with, like, hesitant to write a book. Like they have this book in them that they want to write. And it's just like, it's like you have something in you that you need to share with people.
Right.
Like it may or may not be a New York Times bestseller, but the people that are supposed to read it need to read that, and they will never read it unless you do the work.
Exactly.
Right? So the knowledge that you have and the experience that you've gained and the wisdom that you have to share still hinges on you doing work.
Yes, it totally does. That's right. And I think when you kind of change it from your like, I think it helped me too with like the book I'm working on writing very slowly, but it's getting there.
Well, no, I mean, you're not saying like you're going to have it done by end of the year or end of next year, even whatever. It's just like, you've had that birthing process. That you're supposed to write one.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
And sometimes I have to look on changing my perspective when it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. I'm tired. But almost looking at it like, Anina, but this is in you to write this book for a reason. And it's not all about you. What are the other people's lives you're going to be able to touch through doing this? So sometimes when I shift my perspective, it helps me like almost forget that I'm feeling tired and feeling like whatever pretty much excuse I'm giving myself that day to not do it, and look at it from another way, which is kind of cool.
No, I share that 100%. But like here, my dilemma here is, I want to build this business. I want this business to blossom and grow and just be what God had it, wants it to be for us. But that also hinges on my willingness to work, your willingness to work. And the driving force for me is I want you and I to spend time with our child and raise our child rather than like do the traditional method of daycare and we go work 40 hours a week or 50 hours, whatever it is, right? Like, I don't want that future. I don't want that life. Like, I want to work with people in a very real and personal way. I want to do what we're doing. I want to grow sound mind. So I have to change my perspective on income, the family, the family structure. I have to, on work, I have to change my perspective because, like, a few years ago, like, all this wasn't in my thought process. Like, so this is like growing and developing. So I have to change my perspective as fast as this is growing to keep up, and even faster to stay ahead of it.
That's such a
and I love
point.
it, and it's so exciting. But at the same time, like, you feel like you're running downhill, right? Like you just can't get your feet under you, but you just got to keep throwing those feet out, and you'll pick up the pace. Your legs will get the rhythm. You'll build the muscle strength. Like, it's just doing the work.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. But it's, like everything in life, it's a process and just takes time. And I think just being, I know I always say it, but just being gentle and kind to yourself and not expecting results overnight.
Yeah.
And I even think too, like, another perspective I've gotten stuck in a lot. And I've heard other people say this too. It's like you can't, for example, like if your parents made it to this level in life, it's almost hard to see that you could, be at a different level in life. It's like, for example,
to surpass.
Yeah, exactly. To surpass. It's like, well, nope, I've met my mark. This is where I'm at. And like, I've arrived, and almost like having a hard time. I know you and I've talked about this, but like being able to see that there could be so much more in your future instead of just like, well, I'm arrived, I'm here. This is what my parents made it to, making, this much money and living in, whatever, this house. And that's
this style of neighborhood, this kind of car.
Right.
We did these kind of vacations. We ate this kind of, we went out this many times, whatever. Right.
So sometimes I just wanted to share that because sometimes it is hard to think about. And just for myself of like that there's greater possibilities that could be had.
Very difficult. I remember that was something that you and I both shared. Same thing, just like it was ingrained in me, and even to do something slightly different of, like it was very difficult for me to like, oh, now what do I do? Like, now what? So.
Yeah, and I think a lot about people that grow up in like, because I know just working in the field I have as a social worker, like very impoverished neighborhoods and things like that. They'll say like, yeah, like I've arrived, I've made it. Like I'm able to do like, able to be, and this is just account of one person, but like, okay, I'm able to like, I'm on food stamps now, and I was able to do this and able to do that, and it's like that is like an achievement. Like in of itself, because like this is the life I'm leading now, and that's what my mom did, and that's what my grandma did, and it's just, and we live in this neighborhood, and yeah, it's scary and there's a lot of crime, but like this is what we do, and it's almost like they can't see anything else. So I get it, because it's all in varying levels.
That's sad. I mean, because if that's all you've ever seen, how can you train yourself or think how to do it differently, right?
Yeah.
Like if all I know is this way, if all I've ever seen is this way, I'm not even aware that any other way exists.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That kind of brings me back just to to flip it to the athlete standpoint of like talking with Hannah about like mountain biking and stuff. Is like, for me, like I only see this one way to go down these rocky descents, right? And I only see one terrible way.
Right.
And, I mean, that's
It's
the
a
only
crash and
way.
burn
It's
way.
the only way in my mind. But like,
Yeah.
if it's to bring in the advice and the expertise and the opinions of those that have gone before you that want to help you and change your perspective and show you another perspective, to say, hey, come over this way. Yeah, it's a little tough right at the beginning, but then it's just smooth sailing. It's like it just flows and it's nice. But like from that, like being a road cyclist who's trying some mountain biking, right? Like I don't see multiple line choices. Like I have to train myself, train my mind, my eyes to see the trail like a mountain
That's
biker,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like you said, the filter. Everything's blurred out except this one
Right.
terrible path. But okay, but that's the only path I see. I don't
Right.
see any other option. So to bring in others to help remove the filters, lift the filters, and show me other ways that quite are actually much better, right? So I think to bring those people in life, like whether it's at job, whether it's at school or athletics or anything that you do, making income, health, nutrition, like to bring in those that have gone before you that have the results that you want. How'd you get here?
Exactly. Just being very inquisitive and like being around those people who have that growth mindset and want to go somewhere different than where you're already at, which we know is so huge. Just people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. So, man, gosh, I feel like that's all I really have on perspectives today. Do you have anything else to add? I mean,
well, just I think we touched on a lot. We touched on a lot of the case studies, like the people that kind of the ideas of like people that how they can relate to them, right? The people that are stuck and know it, stuck and don't know it, and then like the open mindset, like they're kind of, I guess we would call them unstuck and just willing to move. I think one of the things that stuck with me the most in how to keep that open mindset and just is that being willing to be vulnerable and to be open, and at the sake of hardening my heart or hardening my mindset. So like whatever it is that we're doing, if it's at work, working with clients, or if it's whatever, apply it to your own life. If it's a weight loss program or whatever, it's just like every diet's terrible and everything's, at the sake of getting hurt again, like getting my feelings hurt, getting my emotions hurt or walked on, or if it's relational, if it's starting a new relationship and I don't want to I want to close off. Like you have to be vulnerable at the sake of truly hardening off, because if you do, then you can't, you just won't have that open heart to allow for new
growth and new
yeah,
experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully that kind of, I got that across okay, but
yeah, I think I get your point of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just having that willingness and that openness and not just having the hardened heart already.
Yeah, like
whatever.
I've been hurt so many times, instead of just like completely walling off, like you have to be willing to take each opportunity as a new opportunity, as the one that will work, and just, that way you're not completely walled off, because if you are, you'll miss the one that will work.
Yeah.
You'll miss the true opportunity.
You will. And it makes me think the point of like, if you look at the world, it's like the way you look at the world, a certain way. So it's like, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it's like, if you look at the world as everybody hates me, nobody likes me, you're always going to look for all the data to support that.
Yeah.
And if you look for ways that everybody loves me, I'm likable, you're going to look for those smiles and those compliments and those attaboys, So it's just opening your mind up to seeing new ways of looking at things too. So.
Yeah, I think I think you summed it up really well there. I like that. I know this is kind of a shorter one for us. But man, I think perspective work is kind of one of those, just like allowing to be open. I think working with someone who challenges you in new ways that will open up new ideas for you. I think that's the biggest thing for me. That's probably the key is, when we started working with the coach ourselves, bringing in that mentorship and that challenging our mindset and challenging our ideas.
Yes.
And accountability. Like that's really when I was become aware of some of the closed off perspectives that I had. Like I wasn't really aware of a lot of the things until I was challenged in that area. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just thought that was working really well. It's like, maybe I didn't quite have that figured out quite like I thought I did. So, if you're wanting to talk with someone, wanting to be challenged in that area, feel free to reach out. We would love to work with you or put you in touch with someone who, if you're after a specific thing, we would definitely be able to put you in contact with someone that we know and trust or ourselves.
Yeah. And, I'm even thinking too, just real quick, that even if, working with a coach right now just doesn't seem feasible or it just kind of makes you a little nervous or whatever, because I know it did us as well, just having to share so many like personal things, but even just maybe taking some time to allow yourself like even if you get that piece of paper out, like I mentioned, and just write down some different perspectives, the current one you have about, whatever, your relationship, and what are some other ways you could look at it potentially, or what is the way that, my aunt, so-and-so would look at it, just kind of like allowing yourself to look at something multiple ways.
Multiple positive angles. And negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like let yourself experience all of them and maybe challenge yourself. Like, hey, this week I'm going to look at it from the cinnamon bread perspective. Apparently I have food on the mind today, but
a little bit, but that's okay.
But anyways, but yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea. Like challenge yourself. Like you got some really good nuggets there, like some really good ideas to challenge your own perspective. I think that's some really great perspective work you can do. Just take one aspect, one area of life, and just how can I look at this from multiple angles?
Yeah.
Multiple perspective, like you said, the 5-year-old, the 80-year-old, the sunny day, cloudy day, all these things.
Exactly. All those different ways, and just allow yourself to really think about like, what would I be doing in this if it was from the sunny day perspective, for example?
Yeah.
And
that's great. I guess, do you have anything upcoming that you want to share or?
No, I mean, the only really exciting thing that we have, well, not only thing, but something really exciting this week is we're taking Mr. Cooper to the pool potty.
The potty, yeah. That'll be fun. She is all about getting this dog out and about. He was at the races all weekend and loving it and meeting people.
Yeah, and it's so neat. Like St. Louis at the end of the year, we found out like opens like all the different pools around the area, so you can so we're just gonna kind of like pool
parties,
hop
so
for the rest of the week.
This dog, I tell you what, he is so spoiled.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what this little baby boy's gonna.
I know.
But it's fun. I'm excited. Life is good. I hope you all have a blessed rest of the week, and please reach out if you have any questions about anything. If you have any topics that you would like us to touch on, talk about, we are more than happy to go over those. And I guess please feel free to reach out on social. I know we kind of hit on this. Like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you can for the podcast. It does numbers for us. Like it really does wonders. I know in this, like we love what we do, but like we would like to obviously see growth, and we are seeing some. We're excited for it, but we're excited for more growth. So it all comes down to you guys. So we appreciate it and thank you and love you.
Yes.
I guess with that, we'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Peace.